monitors. Hello and welcome to the Fish Breeder Show, a webcast covering the how-to in the breeding and raising of tropical freshwater fish. I'm your host, Tim Stanton.
And I'm Jeremy Bosch, and today we're discussing the breeding of killifish.
And this is an episode that provides information to achieve success in the breeding and raising of tropical freshwater fish. As in any journey, there's different ways to reach the same destination.
And this is true with tropical fish breeding. The methods here are that we describe here are just one way to achieve success.
Right. Future shows are going to cover such fish as barbs, tetras, old world cichlids, catfish, loaches, and in this episode we're covering killifish.
Killifish, or egg-laying tooth carps, are part of the order of Cyprinodontiforms, which we actually discussed. Live bears are related to them. We discovered that in a previous episode. Killifish actually get their name from the Dutch word killed, so don't think, which is spelled K-I-L-D-E, which actually means small river or puddle. So these are not ruthless killers. These guys live in small bodies of water, and that's how they get their name. So don't let the name fool you.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, the distribution for killifish is tremendous. They're found as far north as southern Ontario and all the way down to Argentina here in North and South America.
And really the only areas of the world that they're not found are Northern Europe and the continents of Australia and Antarctica.
Gotcha. In total, there are over 1,200 species of killifish, with more being discovered and described all the time. So it's amazing to think about that for a fish that is not as common as other fish kept in the tropical freshwater world, that there's so many species of killifish to have in your tanks, and they're a great community fish as well. And due to their habit of living in small pools and water, they're going to be great for keeping in aquariums. This episode, we're going to talk about one of these 1,200 species in particular, aren't we, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down, but we're just going to talk about a general species. In this episode, we're going to talk about Fundulopanchax scheeli, which comes from the southern portion of the Cross River in Nigeria,
Okay.
West Africa, where it actually inhibits small streams. These streams consist of leaf litter, which are basically leaves that have fallen into the water that fall to the bottom of the river systems where the fish live, and they're also found in heavily forested areas.
Right.
Lots of overhanging trees.
There's something unique about killifish, and that is because they're not traditionally in nature ones that have to have a large body of water. Your aquarium setup can be unique as well, and this is going to be one of these cases where heat, filtration are optional in terms of the aquarium where you keep killifish, if you're keeping it as a single species fish, which a lot of breeders do. Because they're in standing water in nature, they can be in room temperature water back here in your house. So about 72 degrees. You can even use bettas or small goldfish tanks if you want with a killifish. Some of the small micro aquariums work as well. The only problem is that killifish are great jumpers, and so you're going to need a tight fitting lid. Otherwise, you're going to have an emergency on your hands, and we don't want that.
And some species may need more room than others. For instance, some of the larger species of Fundulopanchax, Epiplates, Cynolebius, or Cyprinodons, just because of aggression or size. So it just depends on the species. Do some research before acquiring any species of fish, as we always recommend.
Right. So let's talk about feeding your killifish. Because they are from puddles or small streams, in nature they're going to be naturally a top water fish, preferring live foods over any dry or powdered foods. You'd be lucky for them to take any sort of dry or powdered food. So they're going to need live foods, some frozen foods as well. Fundulopanchax, they will take some pellets and flakes, so we're lucky there with this particular species. But other species of killifish, that's not going to be possible. So whenever possible, you want to feed them as much of the live or frozen brine shrimp as possible, or other worms. For Fundulopanchax scheeli, we use bloodworms, which is red mosquito larvae. We use live brine shrimp, the adult brine shrimp that you can find at your local aquarium stores or online. Baby brine shrimp also work well. That's something that you can keep the live culture going in your house. And then you can also look at a live gamma shrimp, which is a little different size shrimp, but the killies just gobble it down. Grundle worms and white worms also might come into play. And also keep in mind Daphnia. If you can find and keep a culture going of Daphnia, killifish love them.
Oh yeah, they do. Live foods they'll go nuts for. I mean, that's one thing they will never refuse is live food, and it's fun to feed them that. You see a reaction out of the fish almost instantaneously. So, since killifish live in small bodies of water, smaller aquariums work as we were discussing. Here for scheeli, Fundulopanchax scheeli, we recommend a 5 to a 10-gallon aquarium size. Filtration can be something simple like a sponge filter. Just a little air filter. Simple fluorescent light, doesn't have to be anything super strong, just enough to view the fish and enjoy them and see them.
Right.
So,
in terms of decorations, you can keep it simple. Put a little driftwood, some rock, river rock, some plants. Java moss works great. Any types of Java ferns or some other freshwater live plants killifish love. Most breeding setups for killifish have some sort of platform for the fish to spawn on. Typically it's Java moss or better yet a spawning mop. These could either be floating mops or ones that are floating on the bottom. Again, depends on the specific species of fish that you're talking about. And for Fundulopanchax scheeli, you can use a sinking mop that covers the lower to mid portion of the tank itself. Some have been successful in floating mops, but I think, Jeremy, we're preferring to use the bottom mop, correct?
Yeah, that's right. The sinking mops they tend to prefer that. I find more eggs in the bottom of the bottom mops than the ones that float. So
okay.
I'd recommend doing that, and they seem to enjoy that the best. So. And then as far as the actual aquarium, going back to that, as far as heating the tank, remember we said that they could be kept at room temperature. So an actual heater is not going to be required in this case. They do quite well at room temperature. They're going to live longer. Obviously, the warmer the water, the higher the metabolism, speeding the fish's life cycle up. So room temperature is going to suit these guys just fine.
Yeah, that's great. Feeding killies as often as twice daily with the frozen or live foods will get your fish in breeding form and allow females to produce eggs. After you've conditioned the female a week or two, and conditioning, for those that are not familiar with it, that's where you isolate the female so the male's not around to begin the spawning process. Allows her to sort of fill up with the eggs, and then when they are put together, the attraction will instantly start that spawning process. Once you then move the fish back in, nature will take its course, and within about 2 weeks, those eggs that were laid in that spawning march should hatch.
And with all killifish, the eggs are delayed. We were talking about how they take about 2 weeks to hatch. Other species, they may take longer, but this is also dependent upon temperature. And then the tank that we raise the baby fish, the baby killies in, can be very simple. A simple tank, 5-10 gallons in size. Again, mimicking what the parents have. Some cover, simple sponge filter, room temperature water with light enough to see the fish, and then from there, Tim's going to talk a little bit more about what you should do as far as maintaining those baby killifish.
Right. So we've waited the 2 weeks with the eggs either in the spawning mop with the parents, or better yet, that you've picked out of the spawning mop, put into some sort of dish with treated water. A lot of people treat it with acroflavin or some other chemical to protect fungus and bacteria from getting to the eggs. Other people just keep it in the natural water with the parents' tank. You'll have to figure out what technique works for yourself. Both have been successful with us. And then after about 2 weeks, the fry will hatch. They're very rapidly growing fish because in nature, again, they only have a short window in which to get to maturity and begin the breeding process over again. And the key to fry is to provide them with an environment with plenty of food and good water quality. So if we want to do frequent feedings as well as frequent water changes, and this could be anywhere from 2 to 4 times a day with the feedings. And on water changes, you can make as much as a daily 10% change, but the minimum water change should be at least twice a week, anywhere 20 to 40%, to make sure that water stays healthy for the growth of those fry. And then the scheeli, they are very quick to reach maturity. We're only talking about 6 to 8 weeks, and with other fish that we've talked about, that wouldn't even be nearly as close to getting to maturity. And again, it's because of the environment in which they're from. They're very unique fish.
And we would like to thank our sources today in this episode: Wikipedia, the Banch Photo Atlas, volumes 1 through 5, and then there's also an atlas by Scheele himself, the actual fish that, the actual author that the fish is named after, Scheele Killifish Atlas.
That's right.
A great resource for old world killifish. So if you can find a copy of that book, it is out of print now, but if you can find a copy of it, it's worth every penny to obtain that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And let's thank you, the audience, for watching. And on behalf of Jeremy, I'm Tim Stanton, and happy fish keeping, and stay tuned to future episodes of the FishBreederShow.tv.